Welcome to the CSV to QBO to IIF Converter tutorial for version 5.3. So when you first start the app, obviously you've already seen this. Welcome to the QBO Converter and CSV. So click Next. Now, at this point you can import your autocomplete data. This includes your vendors, your other names, and all your accounts. So here's how you export it out of QuickBooks to put it into the application. So in QuickBooks, you would go up to File, Utilities, Export, List to IIF. Now depending on what you want to export, I recommend doing Chart of Accounts, Vendor List, and if you want to do your other name list, you can do that one. It's not required, but if you have a lot of stuff in there, you might want to do it. And we're just going to do those two. And if you have classes, you can do those too. You can export your class list. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to go ahead and do Export Tutorial. There we go. Now, in the actual app itself, simply click Load IIF. And we're going to do D, that's W. Export tutorial. Open, and now it's been imported. Hit Next, and now we can do your bank accounts. This is when you go to export your IIF, all your bank accounts to choose from or credit cards will be available. So we can go ahead and use the same file, just drop it down and select this one, and open. Successful. Now click Next. There's a rules editor, I'll explain that. Tutorial, you're watching it. Hit Next, Profile Management, that's pretty cool. Hit Next, Classes. If you use it, click Yes. If you don't, click No. This basically hides the class column. So if you don't use classes, there's no reason to show the column. In my case, nope. Now, your default account. This is where all the transactions will be imported into QuickBooks that don't already have an account specified. For instance, when I go to Walmart, I might buy toothpaste. I might buy food. I don't exactly know what I purchased at Walmart, and there's no way for me to easily break it out in the converter. So I import it into QuickBooks into one that I like to call Premier eCorp Debit Offset. That's where my bank used to put it years ago when they give me an IIF file. And I go in there and I clean that entire list out. So for instance, I double click on Walmart, categorize it out, food, toilet paper, whatever. And then it leaves that account. What's nice about that is once that account's empty, you know everything has been categorized. So set your default account, hit Next, and setup's complete. So here is, and it's going to tell you what's new. Here is the application. So you can start first by loading your CSV or your QBO. Now, you can either load individual files by clicking one of these buttons, or you can hold down the Control key and also click the buttons. That opens up batch file loading. So for instance, if you want to load a whole bunch of QBO files, you hold down the Control key, you click it, add QBO, and you can select an entire batch of QBO files. Hit Open and Load. Now, when you first open up a QBO file, it asks you which name you want to choose. A QBO file might give you different name links. For instance, the name field in the QBO file typically is smaller, probably to conform to the character limit of QuickBooks. But it's not very useful for creating rules, which I'll show you in a moment. I kind of prefer the full name. Here, you can choose what you want to use. You can have the short name, you can have the long name. It's up to you. And also, if you don't want to see this box again, you can say remember my selection and don't ask me again. In my case, I'm going to use that one. Once again, do you want to use the memo if available? If this file contains a memo, it'll put it over in the memo field over here. If it doesn't, you can say yes, but if it doesn't include one, it's not going to put one there anyway. In my case, I never want to use the memo, so I'm going to say remember my decision No. And it's going to say these preferences have been saved. And this is an entire year of QBO files loaded from those individual files. So we're going to work with a much smaller file. I don't have to work with a year. So we're going to load a single month from a CSV. So we're going to load a CSV. And let's load this one. December of 2023. So at this point, if all you want to do is just convert this and import it into QuickBooks, you can. Just select all, convert to IIF, and these are all mine. But if you want to create a new one, you can just click Add Account. And if you're Canadian, you want to make sure you click Bank Canadian. But we'll just type in new personal checking. And it's a bank account. And convert. And we're going to type in, I'm going to save it to my W drive. We're going to say new personal checking and save. Now, once it actually saves the file, it lets you know you saved it in personal checking and you saved it as the type bank. That way, you don't get any surprises when you export it. I would recommend to obviously back up your company file before you import. Yeah, I myself have even imported stuff into the wrong folder before. And then it's like, oh crap. So just make a backup so you can always go back to a previous date. So at that point, if you wanted to, you can import that into QuickBooks. And I will show you that here towards the end. But how this app really functions and is useful is creating rules. Let me show you how to do this. So there's actually a couple ways to create rules. I'll show you two of them. And we're going to go ahead and select none. Oh, my box is still open down here. Select none. So first off, we want to create a rules file. This is the file which contains all of our rules. For instance, when Walmart comes in saying Walmart Supercenter, rename to Walmart, and put it in this account. But first, we need an actual file to save all these in. So click on Create and Edit Rules. Create a new rules file. And we'll call it Tutorial. Hit Save. So what happens is, it creates the new rule, and then it comes over here, and it opens up the new rules file. Now, you can add a new rule in here. And I suppose we can add one here and use this first. This is not the preferred way I like to do it, but this is definitely one way. So let's start by let's go down here and let's find Venmo Cash Out. We'll double click it and copy Venmo Cash Out. I just did a Control-C. So you don't want to use this entire name because this number right here will probably always change per transaction. So just use Venmo Cash Out. And we're going to replace it with, it's going to autocomplete all my vendors. I'm going to say Venmo. The account, I'm going to type in Venmo. Now you'll notice that it says Online Payment Services Venmo. You don't have to type in Online Services Payment Venmo. Just type in Venmo. It'll search the back end of it. And then simply click Add Name to List. You're going to notice now it put it over here. If you want to edit it, just double click it and you can change it. So that's how you can create a rule in the rules editor. You can also split a transaction. So for instance, we're going to go ahead and update that one. I'm going to do my internet service. My internet service is both my telephone and my internet. So we're going to find Premier, and you can actually search down here. Let's do here. Or is it even on this one? It might not be on here. Oh yeah, this is just kind of that's a half month. Yeah, so let's go ahead and load my QBO file here. And let's load this one. This one's the entire month. So we're going to do load from file, and we're going to load my rule file back in. And in this case, do you want to add the old transaction description to the memo line? I'm going to say, remember my decision. Nope. And hit OK. You'll notice that the rule that we already created already took an effect. Venmo cash out now got renamed to Venmo. This entire list. What's cool is that it highlights it in green, so you know that rule automatically applied to the other ones. So that's where you know which ones you have done, which ones you don't. So now let's do a search for Premier. Or wait, let's do, there it is, Communications. So obviously we're going to match Premier Communications. And the amount is $144.35. And so we're going to do the account is going to be replace with Premier Communications. If you're splitting a transaction, leave this blank and go down here. The first amount is going to be $31 for my telephone. Now in this section, it doesn't calculate it automatically for you. There is one more section. I'll show you this here in a second. So $144.35 minus 31. And the split account here is going to be telephone, landline. The amount 2 is going to be $113.35, and that is going to be internet service. And then hit add name to list. It's going to say if you're splitting an account, just leave the account name blank and hit choose yes. And it actually color codes it too. So splits are in kind of a bluish purple, and then you'll see more here as we continue on. You can actually say what do these colors mean, and blue means splits, red, and so on. So that's one way to add names to the rules file, but I think there's a much simpler way. So we're going to go ahead and back this out, and our rules already loaded. So first you have to load your rules file for this to add to. So once we're in here, let's go ahead and create a new rule. We are going to do all of my Walmarts. So we're going to put a little check mark there and click Add to Edit Rules. And it's already going to put the account name in, or the transaction name in here. We're going to shorten it to just always match WM Supercenter. Replace with Walmart. And because this could have been toilet paper, food, I don't know what it is, I'm going to break it down in QuickBooks. I'm going to leave the account blank, and it's going to put my default account in there automatically. So we're going to hit OK. And now you can see it matched all of these. What else? Now, deposits. Now, these I always do in QuickBooks itself when I do my deposits online. So that if they actually came in, they'd be duplicates. And who wants duplicates? Not me. So we're going to click on the checkmark box, and we're going to match deposit, and because we're going to be ignoring this one, we're going to just replace it with deposit. And for the account name, since we want to ignore it, the best name to give it would be ignore. And then hit OK. And it doesn't recognize deposit as a vendor yet, so we're going to go ahead. In this case, it's not going to get imported into QuickBooks anyway, but if this was a new vendor and you wanted it in your vendors list, you would say vendor. If you wanted it to go into your other name list during import, you would click other names. Or if you didn't import your other names list from QuickBooks and you knew deposit was already in other names, you would just click other names. If it was, not to be confusing, but if it was in other names and you clicked on vendor, you'd get an error on import saying that vendor or that name is already in a different list. So in this case, I'm not even going to use this. I'm going to ignore it completely. We're going to say other name. So how this works now that I marked it as ignore is if we reload everything. Let's see here. Let's load this one. Reload our rules file. You're going to see deposit now has ignore. So when it goes time to actually export my file, I'm simply going to check on select all except ignored. And then as you see, it selects everything except my deposits. How cool. So let's click select none, and let's do another one. Let's do Cash App. Click on Cash App, add to edit rules, Cash App, replace with Cash App, account, online payment services, Cash App. Now, if you wanted to split a transaction from here, you could just click on Show Advanced Matching, and you could do everything we just did over in the Rules Editor, except you can do it right here. The cool thing is, and I'll just kind of show you this for a moment here, is if we delete this out of there, let's pretend we're going to split this transaction. We're going to split a whopping, how much was it? $10. If we were to tap on the amount and say it's $5, it automatically gives you the existing amount over here. So that's kind of cool. So if we were to do $1, it says $9. So it automatically does the math for you. But I'm not going to split this transaction. I'm going to type in online payment services, Cash App. So we're going to hit OK. And there we go. The cool thing is on this version is even though you don't have the rules reapplied, you can still click Cash App and click Edit Rules, and you can actually change a rule that you just added. So one more thing here. Let's take a look at PayPal transfer. Add to edit rule, match PayPal transfer, replace with PayPal. Now I'm going to use an account. I'm just going to make an account up on the fly here that I've never used before. And I'm going to go ahead and type in, let's just type in PayPal withdrawal. I'm making an account up on the fly. And once you hit OK, it's going to say PayPal withdrawal was not seen in your autocomplete. So it's going to assume it's not in QuickBooks. So what kind of account is this? We're going to say it is a bank account and hit OK. Now on import, when I import the IIF transaction, it's going to create that new bank account automatically with the account type as bank. So there we go. Now we can see how this all works by loading in. We're going to reload that in there here. We're going to do that one. And I'm going to load in the file, my rules file that I use every month, my main rules file. So we're going to go down here and I'm going to select this one. And you can see what happens once you have and this amount changed from, I have this one matching by amount, and so that's why it's not matching. And Visa payment, it no longer comes in as Visa payment. I'm matching a new name, so that's why that didn't come in. But you can see how everything is matched. And so simply in this case, all I would do is just select all, convert to IIF, and then bring it into QuickBooks. It's that simple. It's pretty cool. So, what's next here? So one thing you can also do is go up to autocomplete options. And here, if you want to just start over with your autocomplete list, if you've added some stuff in there that you don't want, you can click clear autocomplete. You can clear the bank and credit card list. You can edit the autocomplete list. You can re-import. And you can also import from QIF files if you want to do that. Also, if you want to just run the new setup wizard completely from scratch, just do File and then say Run Setup Wizard, and that'll run the wizard from scratch. All right, so we can also go up here, and sometimes when you import your transactions, I show if it doesn't have a debit or credit line, it's going to use the amount line. Now I say negative numbers are withdrawals and positive numbers are credits. Well, sometimes certain banks say positive numbers are withdrawals, negative numbers are credits. So what would happen is these would show up over here and these would show up over here. If that happens, simply click on swap debit and credit, and it'll swap them around for you automatically. Up here in other options, we have add checks to memo line. So if you had some checks, it would put the check numbers over here. You could clear the memo line. So if you had a whole bunch of memos over here you didn't want, you could clear completely. You could clear the vendor line, which wipes out all vendor names. You can also overlay QuickBooks data. So for instance, if you wanted to see your account information, you could export it out of QuickBooks, and then you could have it kind of sitting over the top here. So you could say load QuickBooks CSV. Yeah, this one always on top, so it's kind of annoying. And this would be, and this will load your QuickBooks data right here. So if you want to reference it, this is not the right month. But if you were doing the same month, you could then scroll on both sides and just kind of check the ones that you had. So that's cool. So the way you would do this in QuickBooks is you'd actually go over here and you'd pull up your account you wanted to export. In this case, personal checking. And you would just say print. And then you'd say, you know, let's say I wanted to print, say, the 1st of 2026 to the currently. Or you can also go back to like 20 years ago too. You can say, you know, 2002. That'd be a lot of transactions, so let's not do that. But let's do 2026. Hit OK. And then say print to file. And we're going to do comma delimited. And then hit print. And then we'll just do 2026 export. Let's see, no data to report on. Oh, my bad. I haven't done 2026 yet. I've only done 2025. So we can do 12/01 2025 to like the end of the month. 12/31 2025. And now you can just do comma. Let's just save over that. Let's do 2025 export. There. So now if you were to come in here and you'd overlay the QuickBooks data, we would do 2025 export, which is actually just December, which is also not the right month we're working with, but that's just an example of how you would export your data out of QuickBooks. So you can also select by an amount. So you can also say select, let's do an amount of 193, hit select, and then it selected that. You can also do select all except amounts. So if we were to choose that, it would select everything except 193. So you can also do that. And one more new feature is, let's pretend that you had, or if you have more than one company file. You might have different accounts and different vendors and different rules per the company file you're working on, if you're working on multiple company files for multiple people. What you can do is you can actually go up here to Profile, and you can create a new profile per company file you're working on. So this profile will have all those vendors, all those autocompletes, and all those accounts. Keeps them separate. So if we were to add Adam's profile and hit OK, it then walks us through a new profile wizard, which you would then import the exported transactions and the exported vendors and accounts from that QuickBooks profile. And you would just bring them in. Now these are going to be exactly like the ones before. There we go. Nope. And we're going to call this one your default. Now, I'm going to create a fake default account just to kind of show you that the profile is being transitioned. So I'm just going to call this one Adam's profile. I recommend not using this. Use your actual default account that you want to use. This is just for demonstration purposes. And we're going to create a new one called New Business. And we're going to leave this one blank. No new vendors. I'm going to call this one New Business. Now, what's going to happen is when you reopen the application, and I'm going to launch it over here for us, it will now sense there's profiles. So when you open up the application, it's going to ask us which profile that we want to use. So give me 1 second to open it up. There we go. And which one do you want to use? We're going to use Adam's profile. Double click it. And you'll see up on top, we are now in Adam's profile. And the reason I chose the default account of Adam's profile is that you can now see that we are in Adam's profile. If we go up to autocomplete options and then go to edit autocomplete list, you can see they're all in there. But let's switch profiles. Let's go to profiles, just double click on new business, reload the file. We are now in new business. And if you look, because we didn't import any kind of vendors or autocomplete, that it's now empty. So that's how you can actually create and transition between different profiles. And you can create unlimited profiles. So if you're an accountant handling 20 different QuickBooks files, just create 20 different profiles with everybody's vendors and autocompletes. It'll make your life much easier. You can also delete them too. So if you don't want to use them, just choose delete, delete, and then when you go to open it back up, now I'm loading it over here. So when you double click it, it'll load up just like there's no profiles. There you go. And let's load it back up again. Now, one more thing you can do is up here under Select All Accept. You can say Select All Credits. Here, let's load our rules file back up here. You can say Select All Accept Ignore. Well, that's all credits except ignore. And so now it's selected all credits except ignore. We can do all debits except ignore. So now it's selected all the debits except the ones we said that was ignore. You can also do select all except ignored and default accounts. So when we select that, it basically selects all the ones we actually have accounts set for and does not select the default account ones. So it just selects the ones we already have categorized. Now, after you import your rules file, if you want to, for instance, let's see which ones, we can actually double click on one of them and we can actually add a change right here if you need to change something on the fly. This is not added to your rules file, but this will get in your exported transaction list or in your IIF file when you export it. So there's one more app, there's a new app actually built into this application. It's called the Tax Converter. And that's actually under File and Tax Converter. And you have to set your tax account. In this case, I'll just make up one. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, what this lets you do is load an IIF file that you previously exported. In this case, we're going to load this one. Were there none in that one? Okay, bad example. We're going to do, oh, that was the one that we exported out of QuickBooks. Let's do December 2025. This one only had 4 transactions. Now, for instance, if you wanted to split the tax out of this file, and my tax rate is 7%. Right there. So we're going to check this one, and what's going to happen is when we export this, it's going to take the tax out of this transaction and on import put the tax into your tax account. So if we export tax IIF, and we're going to call tax IIF, when you look at the file, and this is what an IIF file looks like, if we look at this one, your original amount was $79.18. It took 7% tax out, and it's going to put $5.18 into your tax account. And it's going to put these $74 in Venmo. Neat. So what you can also do is after you export a file, have it brought in there automatically. And here's how to do it. Simply click on select all, or whatever you want to do for export. In my case, select all except ignore. Convert IIF to QIF, and then put export options. And we're going to say open tax converter after export. Now simply click on convert, and we're going to do, doesn't matter, just going to do new personal checking. And this one might fail because this was back, oh, this is definitely going to fail. And this will give you one more example. This split was splitting a transaction amount that's different back in 2003 than it is today. So when we actually go to save it, it's going to say, it'll check the split totals and say, your split total of 144.46, what you're trying to split, does not match the current total of that transaction of 140.20. So it saves you from yourself, so it doesn't incorrectly split a transaction with the wrong amount. And of course there is a wrong amount because my internet went up since 2023. For this example, we're just going to uncheck that transaction. And we're going to convert, convert, and convert. And then you notice that it instantly put it into the tax converter. So you can work it in here. One new feature is if you had, and we're going to have to do a batch load to find transactions that had checks, because I don't write that many checks. You'll notice that when you have checks, if it's in this format, check, check number, check, check number. When you export the IIF, we'll just do select all, convert, export options, add check number to bank export IIF. So if it was in the format of check with the number, it will actually take that number following the word check and put that in the check line of the IIF. So your check number will actually be imported into QuickBooks when you import it in. Now, if you know somebody who's a Microsoft Money user, they can actually export to QIF, convert to QIF. And yeah, this will actually, I made it for my mom. She uses Microsoft Money. So this will actually import into Microsoft Money. You can also import your vendors and accounts from Microsoft Money, export them in QIF, import them into here. So this application fully supports Microsoft Money. Now, if you want to create a new default account and you don't want to actually use the account that you specified during setup, you can actually create a new default account. So in here you can actually say, you know, type in your new default account. In this case, I'm going to put it back to the same. Here's where you would normally change it. So what we're going to do is we're going to load my transactions, my rules file. And we're going to, oh, let's not. Well, let's see. Let's load my transactions here. Load my rules file. We're going to uncheck this one for this example because that's going to exit during export. But we're going to go ahead and import this into my QuickBooks. So we're going to convert, and we're going to do new personal checking, convert, and we're going to do let's see, new personal checking. Oh, in this case, I don't want to go to the tax converter every time, so we're going to uncheck that. Convert, new personal checking. Yes. So let's put it into QuickBooks. This is my test account. So what we'll do is we'll go up to, it's not going to import into here, it's going to do just a test account, new personal checking. File, Utilities, Import, IIF. New personal checking, open. So now if I go to my account, new personal, and it's specified it as a bank, and these are all the transactions. Now I didn't have a starting amount, so obviously we're running a negative balance, but you can see that everything's pretty much categorized for me. And these premier debit offsets, that's the ones that weren't categorized. In that case, you'd go into your, this is a test, test QuickBooks I've been using, so it's probably going to have quite a few in there, more than just this import, because I've been importing quite a few, testing it. But if you notice, these are all the ones that are uncategorized. I imported an entire year, so that's why it's kind of full. But what you would do, in this case, if you want to break out Hy-Vee, you double click it. I'd look it up and figure out what that was, and I'd say, that was food. The good news is, it's already renamed for you. I just got to specify it as food. Yeah, so if we click Save and Close, I was also playing with classes on this, and I never use classes, so it's going to say Save anyway. I don't use classes. So that was one of them. And let's say this one was toiletries. Let's just say I bought toilet bowl cleaner, and then hit save. No, I don't use classes. And you can notice how these are slowly dwindling away. I have quite a few of them in here. But yeah, slow but sure. Amazon, double click, and let's say that was office supplies. Office supplies. Save and close, and it just went away. And so the goal is that every month after you export or bring it in here, you would just make sure this premier debit offset was completely empty, and if it is, then you know every single transaction has been accounted for. So there we go. That is just a tutorial on the new 5.3 version of the IIF Converter. Now, one more feature I forgot to mention is, you know how when I created that new, the brand new vendor, I put it in vendor versus other names, or other names versus vendor. And let's pretend that you put it in the wrong one. You're like, well, how do I fix that? Well, what you would do is you'd go over here and say Open Existing File. And then click Load This. And right here you have Modify Account Types and Vendors. So over here are all your vendors, and over here are all your other names. Now remember when I put other names or deposit over other names? That's where I want it, but let's pretend that was a mistake. How do you put deposit over in vendors? You simply click on the arrow and bloop, now it's a vendor. It's that simple. Or if you want extreme deals to be in your other names list, assuming you haven't already imported it. The moment you import it, it will be in vendors. So you really can't change it after that. But if you haven't imported it yet and you want to make sure that went over to other names, just simply, in this case, just move it over to other names. Also, over here we had PayPal withdrawal, and I put that as a bank account. If I miscategorize that too, you can actually drop that down and save, that was an expense account, and then resave it. And so you can change the account type. Preferably only before you import the first time. Otherwise, the account type will get set to bank, and then if you then take that account name and set it to, expense, it's going to bomb out an import saying that name has a different account type that's already there. So, but anyway, that's how you can go ahead and change the vendor type and the account type. All right, well then that now concludes the tutorial for the new version 5.3. I hope you enjoy using the app and that it makes your life a lot easier. Thanks.